The New Orleans streetcar is by no means a high-speed rail, and by many accounts couldn't even be considered a light rail. The streetcar glides up and down St. Charles Avenue at its own pace, a pace that is uniquely New Orleans. Slow. When most outsiders think of New Orleans, they think of this very streetcar line, the iconic homes and oak trees that line this avenue. They think of downtown, the skyscrapers, and the Superdome. They think of Mardi Gras, Bourbon Street, and the Mississippi River. All of these things did not shape New Orleans. These uniquely New Orleans attributes were shaped by other conditions in the city, such as race relations. Less than 5 miles from the mansions of St. Charles Avenue, we see a different New Orleans. A New Orleans that is plagued by poverty, crime, and racism. But how did we get here? In the landmark Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education, schools were required to desegregate with all deliberate speed. The ambiguity of the court's opinion allowed many Southern school boards to perpetuate segregation in schools. The backlash to desegregation was fierce all over the South. However, many people outside of the city thought this would be one of the easier places to desegregate schools, and this thought was not unfounded. Race relations in the city of New Orleans were a lot more amicable than the rest of the South. However, the process of school desegregation was more difficult and the politics were more heated than anyone ever imagined. Just like the rest of the South, New Orleans white citizens wanted things to stay the same, the way things always were. And 6 years following the Supreme Court decision, New Orleans schools were still segregated. During those years, the New Orleans School Board, with support from the state government and White Citizens Council, stopped school desegregation at every turn. In 1960, however, everything would change. Federal Judge J. Skelly Wright ordered the New Orleans School Board to develop a legitimate plan for school desegregation. He set the date for school desegregation to be November 14, 1960. The mayor at the time, Delasoups Morrison, kept the police from enforcing the federal court order, and the Times-Picayune called desegregation a tragedy. Nonetheless, school desegregation went forward. Ruby Bridges, a 6-year-old African-American girl, was one of 4 students chosen to attend white schools. On November 14th, U.S. Marshals escorted Ruby and her mother to William Frantz School in the 9th Ward. When they pulled up to the school, the mob had already assembled, and as Ruby and her mother walked up the front steps of the school, people yelled and screamed at them. By the next day, the city was in upheaval. White mothers gathered in front of Frantz School to stop Ruby from entering the building. They spit and cursed at her. At a rally against school desegregation, Leander Perez, a political boss from Plaquemines Parish and an extreme racist, exclaimed, "Don't wait for your daughter to be raped by these Congolese. Don't wait until the bare hairs are forced into your schools. Do something now." And by the end of November, almost every white student was gone from William Frantz School. At the time of the Brown case, Orleans Parish had a school system that was 50% white and 50% black. By 1970, 70% of students were black, and by 1980, 90% of students attending Orleans Parish schools were black. The exodus from the school system was extremely dramatic. However, this exodus, or white flight, was truly a tragedy for one of America's greatest cities. As shown by this graph, the population of New Orleans immediately following the 1960 school desegregation mandate dropped dramatically, while population in the other surrounding parishes increased. White families fled the city to avoid having their children attend school with African American children. With them, these white families took social capital, financial capital, and drained the city of jobs, taxes, and revenue. By January 1961, Ruby was the only student at Frantz School, and the torment and hardship endured by this very brave Ruby Bridges is depicted in Norman Rockwell's painting, The Problem We All Live With. But this very sensitive issue has had an enduring impact on the city of New Orleans. While the citizens of the metropolitan area have made great strides with race relations, the scars of racism endure. Many New Orleanians knew of the systemic poverty, crime, and corruption long before Hurricane Katrina ever breached our levees. But the problems our city faced for so long were showcased after the hurricane for the rest of the world to see. 7 years after Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans has come a long way from the scenes of the 1960s and August 2005. While New Orleans has a long way to go, the city and its citizens, both black and white, are making great progress and are moving forward together to rebuild one of America's greatest cities.
I always say that the lesson I took away was a lesson that Dr. King tried to teach all of us. And that was that we should never look at a person and judge them by the color of their skin.